Yeah, greetings, beautiful people. My name is Simon Javan Okelo. I am the CEO of Madaraka Festival and also the host of Madaraka Festival podcast. I am truly privileged to be at the Grammys award, and we are literally behind the venue. The crypto arena is behind us, and I'm sitting here with a legend, my brother Jesu Florido, who is a legendary violinist, but also, he's a philanthropist, he's a producer, he's a leader, he's a globetrotter. What else should I add?
Speaking of, yes. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Of course.
It's an honor.
When I think about how we met, I just feel like we probably met, years ago.
Yes.
Even though we just met recently.
We just met recently.
I feel like we met long time ago.
We're all souls.
Yes, old souls. That's the word I was looking for.
Yeah, I saw you and I go like, I want to be your friend. Yeah. I don't know who you. I didn't know who you were.
Yeah, man.
And yes.
I appreciate it. I want you to take a moment for those who are learning about you for the first time. Mm-hmm. Take a moment to maybe travel back with us.
Yes.
Growing up, maybe as early as you can remember.
Yeah.
The smells you grew up with, the foods you grew up with, the sounds that influenced how you play today.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
The streets you grew up in, Paint a picture for us.
Okay. So, I was born in Venezuela, in a small town, farm town. Mm-hmm. My grandparents are Italian, so they came from Europe to grow coffee. So I grew up in a coffee farm.
Oh, wow.
So talking about smells.
I know.
My grandmother was an amazing cook. And she cooked. I love that you say smells because I talk about smells a lot.
Yes.
She had a wooden stove. We didn't have gas. So it was a wooden stove. So everything was like smoked, and whatever she made had the smell of, the corn. When they make arepas, we have this thing called arepas that are like corn muffins, and you bake them in the oven, and the whole smell of the corn and the wood, it was just, and the coffee. That's my earliest memories of, the not the burn, but the smell of the corn when it's on the grill.
Yeah.
Making the patties. Is incredible.
Yeah.
And then my father was an amazing musician.
Right.
Not professional, but better than most professionals I've ever known.
Right.
So my mother's still alive. My mother's a painter, very artistic.
Right.
And so my house was full of sounds, full of the smell of the oil paintings of my mother.
Right.
All the oils and things that she used for her atelier, that was impregnated in the house.
Yeah.
But there was always music going. And so I'm a violinist. And every time I love telling this story because, like you said, I've been speaking all over the world, inspiring children all over the world in music and the arts. And most people think I have this beautiful backstory with the violin. And they ask me, well, how did you come to the violin?
Right.
And I said, my mom made me. My mom forced me to play.
She did?
She did.
How?
Well, she said, in this house, because we're immigrants.
Right.
So you need to be good at school, you need to do a sport and an art. And I said, I want to do music. But we're in a little town, the choices are not many.
Right.
So there was a piano teacher who was terrible. And I started playing piano and I didn't like it. And then they're just starting a new orchestra program, and my mom says, you're going to play in the orchestra program. And my choices were violin or flute. That was it.
Yeah.
And
how old were you at this time?
8.
8
years old. 7 or 8. I mean, I'm starting to lose track, but I was very young. And I wanted to play. I've seen a cello, and I loved the size and everything. And they told me, no, we don't have little cellos. We have a violin. And I went like, okay. But my love for music was there.
Right.
And the violin is hard. At the beginning, it's a hard instrument to play.
Right.
And I came home the first day that I was in the orchestra, and I came crying because I was a new kid.
Right.
So they sat me all in the back of the orchestra. And I came crying, I don't want to sit in the last. I didn't want to be last.
Right.
And my mom said, well, very simple, with not trying to inspire me at all.
Yeah.
But she said, well, I guess you're going to have to practice if you want to be good. And something clicked in my head.
Yeah.
It hit me. It's like, oh, if I practice, I get better.
Right.
So I started practicing.
Right.
I just haven't stopped.
Wow. You're
I'm
still
stuck.
practicing until now.
Yes. And to connect you this story with my son, I have a 14-year-old boy who's an amazing musician too.
Yeah.
But when he was 3,
Yeah.
he went to daycare for the first time. They asked him to introduce himself to the other little kids that were in there. And he was like, hi, my name is Sebastian. I'm 3 years old. This is my mommy. She's Rebecca. She's a teacher. And this is my daddy. He's Jesus. He practices the violin.
That's so fun. Because at home,
That's all he saw.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing.
So, and it reminds me too, when I was young, I thought my house was a jam every weekend.
Yeah.
My dad bring all these musicians, play all kinds of music.
So this is still in Venezuela.
This is still back in Venezuela,
Yes,
so I'm
okay.
jumping back just to give you, just to make the connection between the two stories.
Yes.
My household was full of music. Every weekend there was a jam. People would show up with food and drink. I mean, it was almost like a party and that was my concept of music. Even though I was learning classical music and the orchestra and all these things, I was learning folk music and jazz and Venezuelan music and Brazilian music, you know. So I grew up very aware from a very young age. And improvisation, I'm an improvisational violinist. I can play any song on any key on command.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
But that was instilled by my father, who I still call one of the best music teachers I ever had.
Right. Even though he was not a professional.
Yeah.
You know, in Africa, similar to in Venezuela, you find a musician playing the guitar their own way.
Yes.
They've picked the instrument and figured out how to play it their own way.
Their own way, of course.
And I think that's, if you master it that way, it's a different flavor to music that professionalism puts you in a box.
Yes.
But I think that's freedom.
Yeah.
And music is freedom.
Exactly. and I was blessed that I was able to offer both.
Yeah.
You know? And I really thought when I turned professional, when I decided that this is what I want to do, I thought I was going to be a symphony player. Never realizing that the strength of my music was going to be what I learned at home with my father. And that's what I went a different direction. I still play with symphonies, and I can turn around and play, you know, the Beethoven concerto with a classical symphony. But I can play with any musician in Africa, any song from any village, because I will grab the rhythm and I will listen to the harmony and I will get this, and I just, I get it. This is where it's going, because that's what my father taught me. You know, they learned to play their instruments.
Right.
My father he never went to school, and he was an amazing guitar player. And he taught me harmony, because he will say, okay, this chord goes to here. I don't know what this chord is, but I know it goes there. So it trained my ear. You know? So it was the foundation of who I became.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. Music is really a language of its own.
Yes.
So, you know, we have a saying in my mother tongue that says that I speak Luo. That's my mom. Luo.
Luo.
Yeah. Luo. And there's a popular saying that what you do will make you travel the world.
Yes.
You know? What you do will make you see the world, you know?
Yes.
And I feel like what you do has made you see the world.
Yes.
And when we met, you know, in Orange County for the NAM convention, one of the things that really moved me was your story of how you came to America.
Yeah.
And we have similar stories. We are all immigrants that came to America not too long ago, and I feel like you need to share your story of how you came to America,
Yeah.
because I feel like it's your music, it's your violin that actually helped you get here and build community and establish yourself.
Yeah, no, and I usually refer to the violin as my magic carpet.
Yeah,
That's me. I've been all over the world.
yeah,
Somebody asked me the other day what was on my bucket list, and I went like, I don't, I've seen the world.
yeah,
I've been pretty much everywhere.
yeah,
But coming to America was interesting because it was not in my plans. It was not in my plans. I knew from a very young age that I wanted to travel.
right,
We were immigrants, and my parents instilled traveling. He says, culture comes from travel, my father would say.
right,
You need to meet people from other cultures. You need to learn. You need to eat their foods.
right.
You know, my joke is that I've eaten my way through the world.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah,
You
I
know?
love that. Yeah,
Because food and music shows you who you are.
true.
You come to any house, and the first thing they offer you is either some tea and some food.
True.
And they put some music in the background, whatever is on the radio, whatever is, so I went to Brazil when I was in my late teens to on tour to play with an orchestra, and I love Brazil. I went like, oh, I could live here. It's amazing. I mean, it was so different than Venezuela,
Right.
very different,
Right.
and beautiful people and so much music. And then I couldn't get a visa to stay, so I had to leave. So as I went back to Venezuela, my friend, who was a conductor of an orchestra, said, I'm going to the United States on a tour. We need reinforcements. So they brought me as a reinforcement in this orchestra.
Right.
And that's how I met this violin teacher who is a legendary, And by faith, I mean, a miracle, I got to play for him.
Yeah.
And he liked me. And they offered me a scholarship to go to the university here. And I said, oh, but I've never thought about coming here. I mean, I was still not settled in the,
Yeah.
I didn't have that, I want to go to America. I didn't have none of that.
Yeah.
I wanted to learn.
Right.
I think what motivates my travel, it's learning. I'm a perpetual learner. I'm learning, I'm meeting you, and I'm learning more about Kenya and your culture. And that's what fulfills my heart, my soul.
True.
So I took the same approach with America. It's just, there's so much music here. Bluegrass and country and blues and New Orleans and, all this music. But I was studying classical music.
Right.
So sometimes people in the university will have a little bit of a problem with that because they say, well, you're going to play class. They want to put me in the box. And I go, no, I have a big box. But I did complete my studies and I graduated here. And when I graduated, I was going to go back to Venezuela.
Right.
And the president of the university said, this country needs people like you. Because I'm very community oriented. So I was already working, like even volunteering at the soup kitchen and teaching kids in the schools and doing, they gave me the keys to the city, for community service, and I'm doing this just because I don't want recognition. I'm not, this is just who I am.
Right.
I try to be myself.
Right.
And learn more. And you learn so much from community.
Right.
And I love to see people get better and thrive, and children especially. I'm very motivated by children opening their eyes because it happened to me. Musicians came to my town that were, famous, and they would talk to me. I remember having a conversation with Subi Mehta, very famous conductor, and then he was telling me all the travels. he has his own plane.
Wow.
He had his own jet.
Yeah.
And I went like, wow,
Yeah.
that is cool.
Yeah.
You get to travel. Yeah, because he was explaining to me how he studies, so he couldn't fly commercial because he doesn't have time. He would study in the plane, flying from one country to the next. So it was really interesting. And those things got in my head. But once I graduated, I approached American culture. I went to Nashville to play country recordings and bluegrass. And and I met Mark O'Connor, who's a very famous American violinist. And he said, no, you need to embrace your roots. He pushed me. He saw something.
Yeah.
And he says, oh, this classical stuff is great, but you have so much more. And I taught in his camp for 12 years. And, none of this I planned. I just took, my life has gone where music has taken me.
Right.
That's how I ended up in Liberia, with the orchestra there. And
I want us to talk about that because you're speaking about community.
Yes.
You're speaking about volunteering at university. We have a lot to talk about, but I want us to go to Liberia for a moment.
Yes.
How did you end up there, and how has the work there impacted you?
Oh, it changed my life. I'm absolutely in love with that country and my kids. I call them as my kids. They're my children. It started with Liberia is a very special place to me because my roommate in college was a kid from Liberia.
Okay.
In the 90s, so I went through the whole Civil War and the crisis and all the horrible things that happened there. So I suffer with my friend, but I also celebrated when the country started getting it together.
Right.
And about 3 or 4 years ago, one of the brands, Glasser Violins, that make my violins, donated. I saw that they posted that have donated some instruments to Liberia. And I went, wait, what's going on in Liberia? Because I know there's not much there, music. There's no music schools. And he told me, no, there's a woman who started an orchestra. And I said, I want to talk to her. I want to meet her. And I met her and I said, listen, I started the program in Venezuela. We have a very famous orchestra program called El Sistema, the system. And I'm a founding member of that program.
Okay.
That's the orchestra that my mom signed me up when I was little.
Right.
So when I met her, she said, oh my God, you're one of the founders. And I'm like, yep, I'm one of the founders.
Yeah.
And so I said, I want to go. I want to go to Liberia because it already has a special place in my heart.
Right.
But if you're starting this, you need people like me with experience and that done this before.
Right.
And the moment, funny, we're going back to smells. The moment I landed in Monrovia and the cab, I rolled the window down and I stuck my head like a dog outside and went like, it was delicious.
Yes.
It's delicious. And it reminded me, because Liberia is an Ecuadorian country. It's near the Ecuador. So it smells like Venezuela.
Yes.
And then I met the people. And then this was a love affair, because the people there are so beautiful. And as you probably know, what happens in countries when they're poor countries? People don't know they're poor.
They don't know.
They don't know.
In fact, they're the happiest people.
They're happiest people.
They're the happiest people.
The happiest people are because they don't know and they don't care. See, their motivation is not money. So that just, first of all, I completely relate. But then make me fall deeply in love and, the community there, the parents, and they're so appreciative of anything you bring. Any words of wisdom, any lesson, hold the ball like this, do this with your finger, they just do it. The level of trust, I appreciate it. They have embraced me with open arms.
Right.
And I take that very seriously.
Right.
I take that very seriously.
Right.
But it's just the people are just beautiful. And there's so much music.
Yes.
Their native music, and there's, 30, I forgot how many tribes. I'm sorry, Liberians. 13 tribes, 12 tribes.
Way more than that, yeah.
I know, but in Liberia, but in Liberia, they have their like whatever the core tribes.
Yes.
You know, and each one had their own music, and I'm just barely scratching the surface.
Right.
And so I'm bringing with the orchestra some of the Western way to play the violin, but I want them to play Liberian music.
Right.
You know, yeah, they learn some Bach and some Mozart, but no, I want them to embrace their own culture. You know, I'm not trying to replace that at all.
Right.
I said, can we mix it? Because as a producer, the way I produce things is that I mix things.
Right.
Because that's me. That's who I am. I'm a mutt.
Right.
I'm a mixture of many things.
Right.
So I can put, you know, classical music in a Kenyan drummer, in a Nigerian bass player, and an Egyptian singer.
Yeah. That's almost like cooking.
Like it is absolutely like cooking. It is. It's funny. I referred to a lot of my analogies in music, even when I'm teaching. It's all about cooking.
True.
Says, I'm going to give you a piece of chicken.
Right.
And you have all the spices here.
Right.
And what are you going to do with it? How much garlic? How much salt? How much pepper? How much paprika are you going to put? You're going to put cumin. I love cumin. My favorite spice.
Right.
So it's when you tell that to a child, their minds go like, I get it.
Right.
I get it.
Right.
And when I'm with my musicians and different bands and different ensembles, that's the way I speak to them.
Yeah.
You know, make me a little more spice here, put a little more garlic, put a little more, you know.
Yeah.
Because sometimes I'm playing with musicians that we don't speak the same language.
Right.
I've done ensembles in Vietnam and China and, Taipei and, they speak Chinese.
Yeah.
I don't speak Chinese.
You know, I'm totally blown away by all the places you've been and all the collaborations you've done across the globe, and I can't help but just listen, But I want you to talk about the place you traveled to that has impacted you the most as a musician.
Oh, that's hard.
Yeah.
That's hard because I think most of them have. I have to say Brazil had a huge impact. But I have to say that Liberia had a huge impact. Because Liberia taught me a corner of African music I didn't know.
Right.
Because of course it's Africa. Africa is huge.
Huge, yeah.
And every village has, of course, I'm not pretending that I knew. And I'm not even trying to say Nigerian music or because that's a overstatement, in Venezuela is the same. Each town sounds different. But my own country, I will say, Venezuela started it. Because Venezuelan rhythms, like I was telling you, we grew up in 5/4, chiki, 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 so we're not in 4, so we already grew up with a little bit of a wiggle, like they call the dance.
Yeah.
And Brazil is just northern Brazil. The music in the Bahia, Baião.
Yeah.
Baião is, I mean, it's just so happy.
Yeah.
It's so happy.
Right.
But I would say that, Venezuela, Brazil, Liberia had a big influence. And then Morocco, all this, because Northern Africa is funny.
Yeah.
In the sense of, Morocco, Algeria. It's like, are they Africans? Are they Arabs? Are they, what are they,
Or are they Europeans?
Yeah, and then plus all the European influence.
Yeah.
So they have the I like the soup they're making there.
Right.
It's a nice soup.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Tunisia. I had a band with the Tunisian singer, rapper.
Yeah.
That changed my life, because I didn't know anything about Tunisia until I met him. And then he brought all this stuff, and I went like, that I like rap in French better than English. I think the best music, the best language to rap is French. It sounds so good.
Yeah.
And even Arabic, and he speaks like 7 languages, you know. So in our band, he will be rapping in Arabic or Italian or French or English or Spanish or, you know, our band is called Global Talk. That was the
Here
name
in
of
LA.
Yes.
Yeah. I love
And back in the early 2000s, we remember MySpace. At some point, we had the #1 song in MySpace worldwide.
Wow.
But the problem back then is that people didn't know what to do with that. And I remember I went to Interscope Records and I said, listen, we have over 500,000 plays a day. We need a recording contract. We want a tour. And they said, no, you have to prove that you can make money.
Yeah.
That was their answer.
Yeah.
And they passed on us.
How could they prove that you can make money?
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway,
You know.
we're in LA, and I want us to talk a little bit about I know that you and your community was impacted by the recent
Yes.
Palisade fires.
Yes.
Share with us, how you are doing around that. Share with us some inspiring stories of people that you've seen go above and beyond to make a difference.
Oh, well, that's a hit very close to home.
Yeah.
Because I live in an area, I mean, my home is okay.
Yeah.
My family is okay.
Okay.
I am blessed.
Yes.
But my community is the Pacific Palisades.
Yeah.
I just happen to live 5 miles this way. I mean, east.
Yeah.
And that's why my home didn't burn.
Yeah.
But my community did. Because everything I do, we do. My wife's work, my son's school, my supermarket, the theater with my son burned to the ground.
Yeah.
And our friends, our community, and that was a beautiful community. There, I know that some celebrities live there, but not everybody that lived in Pacific Palisades was either rich or a celebrity. It's LA. There's celebrities everywhere.
Right.
But it's a beautiful community, and that was proven because everybody came to the rescue.
Right.
And it was very inspiring and amazing that our friends, Lara and John, that they lost their home and their business, and they were out there helping people.
Yeah.
That shows you who you are.
Right.
I tell people in moments of crisis and moments of tragedy, you know who your friends are.
Right.
Very quickly.
Right.
I received thousands of messages on Instagram and Facebook and stuff of people checking on us. So it was, how can we help? How can we help? So the amount of help has been overwhelming. Good, in the sense that it's humbling.
Right.
That so many people are, and then, you just have to learn to take one day at a time. Sometimes it's 1 hour at a time. And sometimes you don't have time to process. We have to evacuate. And I have to say, leaving our house was the hardest thing I've ever done.
Yeah.
My instruments, it's like we have hours to leave.
Yeah.
And then you go, a lot of people ask me, how many instruments do you have? I have a lot of instruments.
Yeah.
I just didn't know how many because I'm not trying to. No, I have 21 violins.
Wow.
I know that now.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't fit them in my car.
Yeah.
I had to choose.
Yeah.
And my wife looked at me and I'm crying. And she said, Jesus, only the irreplaceable ones.
Yeah.
Some ones that you can buy again, leave behind. So we grabbed our passports and papers and hard drives from my studio, 12 terabytes of hard drives that I just ripped out.
Yeah.
Not even have to ripped out everything, put it in the case, my violins, our papers, one carry-on each of clothes, and out.
Yeah.
That was hard.
you know, when such things happen, is also when you know what is important.
Exactly.
You know? That's when you know that what is really important in life
Yes.
is life itself.
It's life itself.
It's
oh
life
no,
itself.
there was no question about it.
Yeah.
There was no question about it.
Yeah.
But then you feel very fortunate that, you know, our neighbor, the last person in our building that left, sent us a picture, and you see the photo of our house and the fire behind you. See it.
Wow.
You know, it got that close.
Yeah.
Fortunately, we're still here, you know.
Yeah.
So, but those moments teach you a lot.
Yeah.
Especially about what's important. And then really, there was no hesitation. You know, we're alive. My son is safe. My wife is safe.
You know what's amazing about this story, though, is about what you value as a human being. Like in that moment, you're like, I can happily leave everything behind.
Yes.
And go with what I can carry, you know?
Yeah.
And I have at that moment, you also realize you have the power to rebuild.
Yes.
There's nothing that can stop you.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
no, that was it. And the only reasons, I mean, even for my hard drives, is just because so much of the music that I've recorded and projects and stuff are there that are not only mine but other people's projects.
Right.
You know.
Right.
So, but yeah, that's true. It's like we can't replace anything. And I learned with our friends that I told you, my wife's best friend, and their families are very, very close. They really walked out of the house with their clothes they were wearing. You know, they lost everything. And you talk to them and says, and you know, yes, it hurts, but they're going like, well, we'll rebuild. And there's so many donations and clothes that, you know, they put, they have a teenage daughter, 15 years old, and there's a girl in Pasadena that has started a boutique for girls. You know, and girls can go shopping. Everything is free. You know, makeup, lipstick, clothes, you know. And I found that on her, and she took her there.
Yeah.
And so you see that is, I cry every time.
Yeah.
Because it's so humbling to see people that got out of the way to help.
Yeah.
You know. And thank you to the firefighters and first responders.
Yeah.
You guys rock.
Yeah.
Because these are the people that run into the fire. You have to realize it was a giant blowtorch.
Yeah.
100-mile winds.
Yeah.
With fire. That's a hurricane.
Yeah.
With fire.
With fire.
Nothing can stop that. I mean, forget what the media says.
Yeah.
Nothing can prepare you for that.
Yeah.
Can we all agree that was a big tragedy instead of blaming people, saying things like that? This was just a tragedy. Let's just leave it at that. But sometimes you will see the fire going this way. I mean, there's some videos of, it's a blowtorch. But the best part is the people.
Yeah.
And everybody that came out to help. And they're still helping, and I'm still helping. The first thing I did? I ordered 2 of the heavy-duty masks with the respirators, the goggles, and a suit, because I knew I was going to go help dig out people.
Yeah.
And I ordered that on Amazon on that Wednesday, the moment after we evacuated.
Yeah.
I needed to have something to go help out.
Yeah.
And I bought myself and my family, I bought 3 sets.
Yeah.
Mask with the big respirators, the goggles, and the suits that contain suits, the fire suits.
Yeah.
To go help dig our friends out.
Yeah.
That was my first instinct. There was no hesitation.
Right. Incredible. Incredible. I really want you to know that, you know, I'm proud of you for being strong despite all of these challenges that you and your family and community faced, you know.
Thank you.
And I'm also really, really impressed by the Recording Academy.
Yes.
For what they're doing even today, you know.
Oh, it's been amazing. Music Cares.
Yeah.
You know, immediately I fill up the form and they send me a food card and some money, and you know, because I lost a lot. I mean, like many people, I lost a lot of work.
Yeah.
You know, to the point that I'm a working musician.
Yeah.
I have to work. I mean, I love my work.
Yeah.
I still have to do it.
Yeah.
And they were amazing. So thank you, Music Cares. I'm one of the beneficiaries of that little incentive they send. It's not a lot, but it helps.
It helps.
It helps.
It helps.
When you got the check and it was, oh yes, I can use this.
Yeah.
And then the Guitar Center Foundation, I have to give them a big shout out. Micah Miller helping replace all the stuff that we lost at our theater, the Theater Palisades. All the gear, the microphones for the kids because they do theater plays.
Yeah.
They're working on that. I've cried a lot. I'm a big wuss.
Yeah. It's good to cry.
I'm very emotional.
Yeah.
But I remember when she replied to my email, I just opened the email and I just started crying. I can't believe the people are this good.
Yeah.
Yeah. It humbles me.
Yeah. How does it feel to be right behind Crypto Arena where the Grammys are happening? Look, it's right behind us.
It's right there.
Yeah.
It's crazy. I've never been this close, this high, where we can see it.
Yeah.
It's an honor. The Grammys is very special to me.
Yeah.
I tell you a quick story because in 1979, I was 13 years old. I just dated myself. Yes, I'm that old.
Yeah.
And I was at a party with my father, where there was a big jam.
Yeah.
But I had a girlfriend at the time, and I was trying to be cool with my girlfriend and said, let's go watch TV.
Yeah.
Instead of participating in the party.
Right.
And we started watching, and TV in Venezuela in the 70s was still black and white.
Right.
We didn't have color TV until the 80s.
Right.
And we turned the TV on, and there was the Grammys.
Right.
And they were given the award for best new song or something, best song of the year or something. And they announced it, and I was mesmerized.
Right.
I've never heard of the Grammys in my life. I have no idea what that was.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting with my girlfriend and her friend, and I said, I don't know from where, Simon. This came from somewhere. And I said, one day I'm going to play there. What?
Yeah.
Where did that come from?
Yeah.
I have no idea what I'm talking about.
Right.
Here I am.
You manifested it.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I've been a voting member of the Grammys since 2000.
Yeah.
So for 25 years. I've played on the stage many times.
Yeah.
And it's a blessing. And I don't take any of the ceremonies or any event for granted.
Yeah.
I'm still that little boy.
Yeah.
I've never forgotten where I came from.
Right.
I'm still a little boy from a farm town in the middle of nowhere.
Right.
And I count my blessings every time. And I was talking to somebody the other day and talking about musicians getting depressed and stuff. And I said, listen, I have a great solution for when I get depressed.
Yeah.
I drive down Sunset Boulevard.
Yeah.
And I go, I filled up every club in Sunset Boulevard when I play.
Yeah.
That's my depression medicine. That's therapy for me.
Wow.
This is the clubs where all the legends, I've played all of them.
Yeah.
And filled them up too.
Yeah.
So I'm blessed. That's the best cure for depression.
Yeah.
Count your blessings.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you, like, when you think about your career as a musician, what's the stage that you've been on that still makes you nervous, but also makes you, gives you some chills when you think about that moment?
Excuse me. I have to say, I don't get nervous anymore. You always have the excitement. I'm a seasoned performer, so.
Yeah.
But Carnegie Hall is awesome. Carnegie Hall inspires me. I've played many times, and Wembley Stadium was humbling. It's so big.
Yeah.
But also, there's a little church in Watertown, Wisconsin, called St. Paul's. It's one of the best acoustics that I ever played.
Right.
And it's funny, I was talking to somebody from Wisconsin the other day, and I said, that church, the acoustics. I played a concert, Baroque music concert.
Right.
And I tell people, that is the church where I learned that God is real.
Right.
Because it hit me. When Bach was writing music, this is what he was hearing.
Yeah.
And that is one of the most humbling moments in my life. When I'm like, I get it now.
Yeah.
Because you can understand. I always say there's a difference between understanding and getting it.
Right.
When it really hits you.
Right.
So that is one of my favorite stages that I ever played.
Right.
Because it's a moment that I will always associate with understanding that part.
Right.
That is a spiritual part of the music.
Right.
Where we have to have a deep faith that is going to work. You have deep faith that your work has paid off.
Right.
You have deep faith, and faith is faith.
Faith is faith.
You know, it applies. And when you act under those under those guidelines, it translates into your life.
Right.
You know, it translates into your life.
I love that. As we are getting close to the end of our conversation, I want you to, as you're walking here, you know, for our conversation today, I'm sure in your heart you're thinking of something that you wanted to talk to our viewers and me about, you know. What is it that is in your heart that you want to share before we wrap up?
My soapbox preaching, you know, be kind.
Yeah.
And listen to music. Listen to music from other people's. Listen music that is not from your town. You know, explore, travel. Even if you cannot travel, some people cannot travel for, you know, financial reasons, for medical reasons. Music will take you everywhere.
Right.
Music will take you everywhere. And the more you learn, the bigger your heart gets. And the bigger your heart gets, the more part of this world you become. So let music be that vehicle that takes your soul to the next level, that brings you, you know, empathy and community. You learn that through music. So my message in general is always listen to music. You know, it's like trying new foods. You cannot eat the same food every day.
Right.
Let's say, I don't know, cheeseburgers are your favorite. You cannot eat cheeseburgers every day.
No.
You know? So try new foods.
Right.
And what new foods are going to bring is like, we're going to try, you know, I remember, you know, I thought, and I'm sorry, I'm going to say this, it's going to sound dumb, but I thought I knew African cuisine.
Yeah.
You know, I've been to Africa before. I've tried African food. And then I got to Liberia.
Right.
And I went like, this is amazing, you know? So even for somebody like me that has traveled, that has eaten his way around the world, discovering new food was amazing.
Right.
You know? And if you have this kind of food, what is it? And it took me a while. I have to research, even with the locals. What is your music? I want to know what is typical Liberian, you know? So do that with, you know, Canadian music, with Mexican music, because, you know, being an American, I'm thinking, you know, go with your neighbors first.
Right.
Canada has such a rich, you know, background of music. Different states, different, you know, regions, sound, different rhythms, different things. And Mexico is not all mariachi.
Yeah.
As much as I love mariachi, you know, there's so much. And this is just with our neighbors.
Right. Right.
You know?
I love that.
So, yeah, embrace the world. Let the world in through music. You know, expand your knowledge. And knowledge brings your heart grow.
Yeah.
You know?
I love that. Do me a favor and just look at that camera and ask everybody who's watching to subscribe to Madaraka Festival.
Oh, you have to subscribe.
You know?
Madaraka Festival. Oh my God! You're gonna see me playing there a lot. I mean, you're not gonna get rid of me.
I cannot.
You're gonna go to house again. I can promise you. Then I can promise you. Every time I play, it's gonna be different.
Yes.
Different. But subscribe, support Simon in his amazing program because you're an amazing human being too. Let me thank you from the bottom of my heart, from human to human.
Thank you.
Because we need more people like you doing this.
Thank you.
We do. It's very important because it takes a village. That's a thing that we say here. It takes a village to raise. Well, it takes a village to raise, to build community, to stuff. And what you're doing is remarkable. I'm humble.
Thank you.
Humble and honored by your invitation, and
thank you.
Happy to be here to share with you guys.
Thank you.
So thank you.
Thank you. I really honestly. I felt like I took a journey to so many places with you in this.
Yes, and it's just we're barely getting started.
Yeah.
We could do this for another 3 hours if you guys want to hang out.
Thank you so much.
My brother.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
This is the beginning.
This is just the beginning.
Yeah.
Yes.
I appreciate it.
Thank
you all for joining us for this amazing conversation with my brother, an incredibly talented musician and philanthropist, producer, father. My brother Jesus, Florido. We are here at the Grammys. We are, this afternoon the Grammy Awards are going to happen, but this morning we've decided to have meaningful conversations and record them for the Madaraka Festival podcast. And I want to ask you to make sure you subscribe to the channel, give this video a thumbs up, and leave us with a comment down below if today's conversation inspired you. Thank you so much. Peace.
Peace.